Hello and welcome to the Zwift Race Place. I'm Kate Fravel, and with me today is Chris Ovenden, one of the Veganuary race organizers. And today we're going to be bringing you live coverage and commentary of Veganuary stage number 4. This is the Queen stage on the London Pretzel. So, for the first thing on our pre-show agenda today, I think, Chris, it would be great if you could just talk us through where some of those intermediate points are out on course.
Yeah, sure. So on this one, there's two sprint locations to get sprint points available, and that's the mall, the forward way through it. So that will actually come in between the two hills, and then it's a sprint for the line for another set of sprint points, and it'll be first across the line there, whereas the mall sprint is going to be fastest across the line. So everybody's going to get a chance to do that no matter where they are in the race. And then for the hills, we've got Fox Hill and Box Hill, and it's going to be fastest up both of those is going to score you some KOM points.
All right. So, 2 hills out on course today. I think we can take a look at the Velo Viewer now, because that shows our elevation profile. So just looking at the Velo Viewer here, it is a loop, so we start and finish in the same place. And you can't really see it on the Velo Viewer, but we do have 2 climbs, and it's actually the same hill. We just hit it from both directions. So I think the forward direction is called Box Hill and the backwards is Fox Hill, although those 2 could be interchangeable. So, Chris, do you know which one we hit first out there?
Yeah, so we do Fox Hill first. That's going to be 2.4 kilometers at an average of 4.9. It's quite a steady climb, that one. It does level out a little bit in the middle, so that'll give a bit of reprieve to our riders, but then it tips right back up again for the remainder of the climb. And then the other way is Box Hill. So they'll do that last, and that'll be the last big effort that they have, really. Well, other than the escalators, and perhaps we can talk about the escalators in a moment in the tube station, but Box Hill's 3 kilometers long with an average of 4.3. So a little bit longer, but less gradient, so perhaps a little bit easier on the legs. But I expect everybody at the front of the group is going to be really hitting it hard there to try and break away. And I don't know if you can see on the Velo Viewer, but right at the top of Box Hill, you actually flatten out. And then there's suddenly this little spike. And those of you who've ridden London will know that that little spike is really quite steep right after you've done Box Hill, and it can catch some riders out. So I'll be interested to see what happens there, whether we get an attack with a smaller group breaking off and then another little attack at that small bump before the fast downhill.
Yep, and I just switched over to our elevation profile here, actually, because that more clearly shows that steep spot there. And I know, in my opinion, I don't know. I'm not sure which one's harder. I think Fox Hill's a little bit steeper in some places. If we look at the average gradients, Fox Hill has an average gradient of 4.9%, whereas it's only 4.3 on Box Hill. But then, of course, Box Hill is a little longer, so it evens out. But I think I prefer Box Hill, and I find Fox Hill a little harder. I don't know about you.
Yeah, well, I think you're on the money there in terms of the hardness. But as I say, it's that little bump after Box Hill that I think catches people out, keeps people, just gets people sleeping. At least on Fox Hill, you work all the way. And then when it finishes, you're on the easy, you're on the flat or the downhill. So you can relax. Whereas on Box Hill, I think they're going to have to stay really focused to make sure that front group doesn't sprint away up that next little bump.
Yep, I agree. And there is a sprint in between the 2 hills. That is for points, I believe, right?
Yeah, so the one in between is the forward mall, and that's the one that they're going to score points on. So obviously the first 30 kilometers of this race, there's no points available, but still, even though it's flat, even though there's no points, I'm expecting to see a lot of the categories go out pretty hard on that flat and try and break the climbers. Because if you're a heavier rider on this course, you've got to think, well, I'm going to struggle to keep with the lighter boys on those hills, but I've got 30k to really put the hurt on them. Chug along with my diesel engine at my 3.8 watts, whatever it is, which is just going to be way more watts than they can push to try and lose them off the back and hopefully get an advantage going into Fox Hill.
Well, that actually perfectly segues into our next topic, which is who is going to be able to make the cut and take the win today. I don't know what you have for predictions today, Chris. Do you have a certain type of rider that you think might win? Because I'm going to be switching over to our favorites right now.
Yeah, well, I certainly think that this course is going to favour the lighter climber, not maybe not the pure mountain climber, so that you're out the Zwift or your Ventop master who can just sit on their threshold for hours on end. But I think a lighter rider who knows how to race, who can sit in the draft of the bigger boys and then really give it some welly up those hills. I mean, even on the first one, it's going to be interesting to see what the group does, because there's really no point in just getting away as a solo rider on Fox Hill, because you'll just be caught by the group. So I wonder whether we'll see those lighter riders really use some strategy, stay with the heavier boys at the front and let them lead them up the hill, let them lead them through the first sprint, and then on the second hill really blast it and try and keep the distance on the downhill back towards the start finish line.
All right, so I've got our mixed favorites up right now. So this is for men and women, and I actually had to change this. I had originally had this as the men's favorites, but I think that one of our female riders, Evelyn Bunnick, she is from the vegan crocodiles, might have a good shot at winning in the sea race today. I think her racing, she's really good tactically from what I've seen in the past. She knows when to make the attacks, and this is definitely a tactical course out there, and she's backed up by her numbers too. If we look at her stats here, some of where she's sitting in different competitions in the C category, she's leading the women's GC, and she's fifth in the mixed KOM, so that's men and women. And then she's also sixth in mixed GC, so way up there in that mixed GC. Second in the women's sprint, and she's got a really strong sprint, in fact. If you look at her numbers, strong sprint there, and a moderate 1 minute to 5 minute watts per kilograms, which is what you're going to need to be excelling on those hills. So she is my pick for our C favorite. And then I'll go in order now. So back over to the A race. I went with Howell Davies from the BRT squad, the Welshman. And I think we might even have the privilege of talking to Howell later on in the stream. He just got on Discord with us recently, so we might be able to do a post-race interview with him. But I think I chose him because he's got a strong sprint and he's got some strong climbing legs. And I really think that today it's going to be the riders that can make the selection on the second KOM and survive long enough to that flatter sprint down in London. And I do want to note that the sprint in downtown London is slightly uphill. I believe it's a 2%, 3% gradient there. So that could play a part. And then over in our B race, I chose Evan Flater. He's from the On the Rivet squad. And this guy, I classified him as a climber, but he's got some good sprinting legs too. I think he can hold his own in the sprint, especially since it's a slightly uphill sprint. So I think we should be watching for him in the B race. And then finally over in the D race, I chose Jimbo Vin. He is from TFC squad, and he would normally be classified as a sprinter, but I've definitely seen him hold his own before on these little climbs here, and I think that he'll have the legs to stay with some of the lighter SDW boys over the climbs. I'm going to switch over to our women's favorites now. Chris, do you have any last words about our mixed favorites before I switch over?
No, you go ahead. I think I agree with all of those. Looking at some of those numbers, you've got some. Howell Davies is 63 kilograms. Evelyn, obviously, 59. So, lighter riders who I think are going to excel. Jimbo, I mean, he may have a harder time. He's 104 kilograms, but a very powerful rider. And with some of those top D riders being upgraded in the last race, there's every chance that he's going to be leading out that pack into the final sprint.
All right, so I'm going to switch over to our women's favorites now then. And in the A race, I did not see Alice Lethbridge signed up. I don't know if she signed up since I checked Zwift Power, but she can't really be considered a favorite if she's not signed up, and she was our only female rider really left in the A race, so we don't have an A favorite for today. But in the B race, Jane Geddes, she is leading the women's GC in the B race by quite a lot. I really just don't think that there's anybody else that can touch her. She's got some really outstanding numbers there. I'm not sure about the exact number, but I think it's around a 7-minute gap. And then over in the C race, Evelyn again. I talked about her earlier because she's also our favorite in the mixed C category. And then finally, Ladine Unser from WTRL. Once again, another rider I would technically classify as a sprinter, but she's got decent 1 minute, 5 minute watts per kilogram, so I think she can hold her own on the climbs as well. So I'm going to switch over to some of our results, and I think I'm going to start with the Cat A GC results. Chris, if you want to pull those up. And is there anything, I think I chose these because it's the smallest gap between first and second place out of any of the overall standings, only 5 seconds. But what do you think about these Cat A GC results, individual GC?
Yeah, well, as you say, it's super close. We've got Howard Davies there leading it out for BRT with Zach Carner from No Pins, really close. And then Chris Smart close as well. So, I think if the No Pins boys are turning up today, I think they're going to want to really storm a march on this and try to get 2 of their riders, maybe even 3, right to the top of the results to see if they can push them up to the top of the individual GC. A little bit more spread out now after that last. We did think that the Innsbruck KOM would really break things apart and maybe turn it on its head. Some similar names up at the top, though, who are sort of all-round specialists. So we'll see how they deal with the London course today.
Something else that I'm seeing here in our A pen, it looks like Jerome Spielman's has been upgraded. So congrats to him on the upgrade. He was a really strong B rider before this, so now he's racing in our A pens. So I'm gonna go over to our Cat D team results real quick. And these say Cat D polka dot jersey, and I apologize for that. It looks like I just forgot to switch that title there. But I wanted to take a look here because I know you've all heard me talk about the SDW youth team a lot, and they're leading here with a 2 minute gap. And then one of the other notable things from this table is that the leader of the individual GC, Jimbo, rides for TFC, and TFC is not one of the registered teams in these standings. So I thought it was really interesting. This might be our only Team GC where the leading rider in the GC isn't up there, top 10 area on the Team GC results.
That is interesting, Kate. Sorry, I was just going to say, I think we made a rule that people had to join with at least 3 to have a team in the Team GC. We've loosened the rule slightly. So if you join with 3 and you go down to 2, then they can still carry on. But maybe TFC didn't quite have enough in Cat D for a team to begin with. And obviously, Jimbo's just been storming a march on his own, just a sort of solo warrior fighting off all the rest of the D riders.
Yep. And I think we're coming up on a minute and a half to go in our A race. And right now it looks like 138 riders in the pens in the A race. Just went up to 139 actually. So it's a really big category there. And this category will probably be a bit laggy for us in the stream. This is usually our largest category and the one with the worst graphics. But I'm going to head over to where we can see them now, as they're approaching a minute to go on the start clock, so we don't want to miss their start. All right. So
if we can just have a bike choice now, Cade, you can see a lot of the riders going for the Tron on this course. It looks like going for that nice aerodynamic bike. So it's, if you're into your racing on Zwift, you've got to be working on getting that Tron bike. I think I can see maybe a few SL7s there. Wouldn't necessarily be my first choice, but maybe people thinking, look, I want a sort of all-rounder with a bit of a lightweight tint on it. But mostly I can just see a sea of glowing Tron bikes everywhere.
Yep, I do as well. And I see 2 TFC jerseys in here right now. So it looks like TFC might have a team in the A race. I'm not positive on that, though. Have to confirm. But also, I'm seeing, for 20 seconds to go now, Blue Moon Hitman has said, well done to Chris in his earlier chess match win. Were you playing chess before this, Chris?
I was, yeah. I'm not sure who that is, but I've been trying to play chess anyway. I'm probably a better Zwifter than I am chess player. But here we go. They're just about to get off. So let's see what sort of power they're putting off here. as they come out. I'm following Hywell Davies. I'm not sure about you. 434 watts out of the gate. That's a huge effort. And let's see how long it lasts, Kate, because I think we might see some riders here really try to break things up in the early part of the race, separate out into that front group, and really just, try and whittle things down as soon as possible so they've got less to think about when they get to the hill. A lot of green shirts I can see there with the V on the back, some really strong riders from Team Vegan representing there. So that's really great to see.
Yep. I'm actually in with Eddie Houle. I don't believe he is a sign-up, but he is a really strong rider right in the middle of this group right now, honestly, hovering around a lot of different places here because they're all just fighting for position so hard right now. I'm going to try and move up through the field a little bit better, see who is on the front. Where's Howell doing in this race, Chris?
I'm not entirely sure of his position because I'm in the B pen, so I'm just waiting for that side. I think he's about 46th, 80th, but he's right at the front of this group. Definitely really just pushing some big numbers to stay there. And this is incredibly fast, almost 50 kilometers an hour, this front group, as they hurtle down up this first little rise. I mean, 45 kilometers an hour on a 3% rise is very, very fast indeed.
Yep. And it does not stay at 3% forever, but that was the finishing straight we just went through there, which I think is important to note because this is where the racers will be sprinting to the finish. And as you said, 3% gradient there. So it will be a bit of an uphill finish, suiting someone in the real world, more like the likes of Peter Sagan. But we'll just have to see who the Peter Sagan of the Veganuary A race is today, who can bring home that little uphill sprint and also survive over the Surrey Hills earlier in the race. That's Fox Hill and Box Hill. So it'll just be interesting all around to see where the key selections happen on course. Obviously the KOMs, but where else people put in attacks. And then also what happens in that final sprint. And I'm going to predict that it's going to be a selected bunch sprint, small bunch sprint coming into the finish. I don't know. Do you agree with me there?
Yeah, I think we may well see a couple of the lighter riders really break away, but it's a long way down the other side of Box Hill back to the tube station. We didn't talk about in our intro the escalators that they're going to have to go up. Obviously, you get that nice little quirk on these courses where you go through the tube tunnels, watch the middle rail. And then they've got that really steep, I think it's about 15% climb, where they're just going to have to smash it. So, if there's a big enough group of medium to heavy riders behind them, they may well be able to just power down that hill and catch up on the way to that tube station. So it'll be really interesting to see. But I think you may be right that we may see a select group there sprinting for those top 10 positions.
All right, Chris, I'm going to try and switch over to our B race now. I know you were in the pens. I believe they're underway, right?
Yeah, they're underway, so don't follow me because I'm still in the pen, but I'm riding with Martin van der Vis. He's one of our Team Vegan riders, currently riding along at about, I think he's in 40th place, something like that, 20th, 30th, right at the front of this B race that all seems to be sticking together quite nicely.
Okay, I'll try and head over with Martin right now. And in the meantime, I just want to remind everybody, let us know what your favorite vegan recipe is over in the live chat. I put that there, but as it is Veganuary, I thought we'd have a little fun this week because it's definitely a longer course, so we'll be here for a little while. So let us know over in the live chat, and Chris and I might share some of our favorites later on as well. Chris, do you mind letting me know how to spell Martin? I know there's a J in his name somewhere.
It's Martijn.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Van der Vis. Yes.
All right, so we're going to head over with Martin right now. And he rides for Team Vegan in which squad?
I think he's in the Vegan Badgers. And that's also his ZRL squad as well. So he was very happy to stay a Badger for the Veganuary. We had a little bit of a mix-up with some of the teams. But yeah, still riding for the Vegan Badgers, and he's doing very well here. I mean, look at the speed of this B pack. We're on the sort of flattish part doing 46 kilometers an hour. That is, I can tell you as a lighter rider, that is going to be hurting those riders who are that little bit lighter, who maybe have a an FTP of around 200, 250, because we can see Martin was just pushing 400 there just to stay with this front group. So that is a huge number of watts. And obviously, the front of this race have decided we're really going to take it on and we're going to make these guys hurt at the back.
Yep. And I just want to apologize. We're a little glitchy in the B race, but we can see everybody still. And it looks like Martin's sitting right around the center of the pack, getting some nice draft benefit there. And another thing I want to note is his heart rate. It's sitting around 140 beats per minute right now. And honestly, I would have expected that to be a little bit higher, considering this is the start to a Zwift race. But, I don't know how heavy he is or how old he is, so that might be a reasonable heart rate for him, because they are definitely pushing hard at the front here. Looks like we're doing 27 miles per hour on a 4% gradient right now, which is really outstanding. And we're seeing some draft power-ups and as well some arrow feather power-ups being dropped right now. So riders definitely struggling to stay with the group. And I see Chris Smart in the chat. That is GTR Gringo, who is up at the top of our A-Race GC. And I think he might have said in the comments after last race that he's not going to be able to race today. I don't know if you caught that on Zwift Power, Chris, but I think Chris Smart, GTR Gringo, might be out today. I think he was working tonight.
I see. No, I didn't see that, but it may well be that he's had to drop out, which would be a real shame for the Nopin squad, definitely.
Yep, I'm just going to check up on that in Zwift Power right now. But in the meantime, the group definitely spread out quite a bit. I don't know, Chris, what's happening at the back of that pack right now?
Just have a look if I can and try to find somebody to follow.
Because I'm seeing a small group kind of splitting off the front here. Riders trying to make the selection. There's a small gap in between riders, and they're all just trying to come up into this front group here right now.
Yeah, definitely. We've lost the blob, haven't we? As we head down this another very flat section. I can see on the map, only very small, but we can see there are some rises coming up even on this flat part. So it may be that there is an opportunity to push and to get away there. But yeah, definitely starting to look a bit more like a snake and less like a blob. And in fact, we've got some riders just coming off the back there now. They're going to have to push really hard. I can see Jay Green having to push really, really hard to make sure he sticks onto this big group, because once we get onto a flat or a downhill and you've lost that draft, it's going to be really difficult to come back.
All right, and I did just get confirmation from Chris Smart in the chat. He says, off to work shortly, lads. Sorry. So I don't think he'll be riding today, but it looks like he's rooting for Zach Hamer. I'm assuming another Nopins rider for the win today, so we'll have to keep our eyes on Zach Hamer, see if he's doing well. But I think we're going to switch on over to our C race now with our favorite in both the women's category and the mixed GC, and that is Evelyn Bunnick. I'm just got to find her on course right now. Chris, are you in with our C? Excuse me, are you in with our C category yet?
I'm just trying to switch over to Evelyn now, and I can see that she's in the front group. With actually a rider off the front here. Somebody may be trying something a little bit early in the race for my liking to be going off the front right now. I would be, if I were in this group, I would be trying to stay nice and tucked in, conserve all the energy I can for when we get to those hills. But maybe just wanted to get the jersey out there on the stream. But Evelyn doing very well, riding in about 10th place here coming into this. So putting out some big watts even for me. I'd be impressed with these watts, and I'd be quite happy with them. Evelyn's one of those riders who is right on the cusp of the category for the mixed C race. You know, if she just improves her FTP even slightly, she's going to be getting kicked up into the B race. So, you know, a definite one to watch in this race to see if she can take the win here.
Yep, and I'm just going to see if I can check and see what her FTP is right now, because that would be kind of an interesting thing to look at. Because I know I myself am a C racer that races with B power watts per kilograms, but I do not get a forced upgrade because my FTP is so low. So I wonder if that could even be the case with Evelyn, as she is a lighter rider. So I'm just going to check on that right now, actually. And it looks like she's got an FTP of 212, and the cutoff for B is 200. So I was not correct about that. Oops, sorry. I think I switched over to our favorites here. Go back to the race. Okay, so as I said before, we're watching Evelyn Bunnick, and I see a draft power up being dropped in the middle. Excuse me, an arrow power up, not a draft power up, being dropped right in the middle of this group, and that is usually a sign that riders are starting to struggle to hang on. Evelyn sitting nicely right around the center here, but that power up is often a telltale sign that riders are starting to feel it in their legs, and we still have a lot of racing left to go. So I think if you're dropping arrow power ups in this group right now, it might be better to just hang back. There's already a group off the back of this one. You can drop off the back and ride with them for the rest of the race, because I don't think that you're going to be able to survive in this front group, but you never know.
I think you're right there, Kate. When I'm in a race and I see people around me start to drop those power ups when we're not at a particularly hard section, we're still on the flat, that's always a message to me. Hey, these guys are struggling. We're doing well here. So I don't know whether that was accidental. It could have been just a bit of sweat on the phone or something that's clicked it by accident. But definitely, I think we saw it in the B ride as well. A lot of power-ups being dropped on the flat. Some riders really struggling to keep the pace. So let's see how that works, because I think it's a race of strategy here. People are going to be on the front here, really pushing the pace and trying to break the riders behind. And they will be, I would imagine, heartened to see some of those power-ups being dropped, knowing that they are doing some damage to the lighter riders and they are having to use those power-ups early to stay with them.
Yep, I would agree. And you're right about that. It could have just been a lighter rider there, and they will definitely have their time later on in the race. And if you are a lighter rider, it's probably worth it to drop the power up here. You can excel later on once we hit the climbs, so you really need to just stick in through this flat section for a little while. So just an interesting thing to watch is always watching for power-ups being dropped in a group in maybe a more unexpected place. But I think I'm going to try and head over to our D race now, and I'm going to jump in with Jimbo Vin, our favorite today, because I have a hunch he'll be up there in the front of the D race. Jimbo races for TFC, and we're just switching over right now. It's a little bit slow today, but here we are with Jimbo, and it looks like he has been dropped right off the back there. The SDW Youth Squad has distanced Jimbo. He's about 18-20 seconds back right now, and for so early on in the race, 20 seconds is a lot. Take a look at the spreadsheet here and see how much of a gap he has. He could be just checking out. I think he's got a decent gap in the DCAT GC. Just checking right now. It looks like the gap to the next rider, Nathan Tully, from the SDW Youth Squad, is nearly 8.5 minutes. So maybe Jimbo just said, it's not my day. I've got a very large gap to work with. I can let these younger riders go off the front and keep my spot in the GC. I don't know, Chris. What do you think about this? Nearly 30 seconds now.
Yeah, well, I think you might be right. I mean, this group that's gone off the front, I'm riding with Ollie Fussell here, who's one of the SDW youth riders. I can't see any teammates around him. I can see, it looks like Nathan Tully's back behind him, actually with Jimbo. So maybe Jimbo's just looked at this and thought, hey, my competitors, if they want to go flying off the front like this, I don't feel like I'm going to get caught here. And in fact, I'm going to ride with a much bigger group and try to bring them back. If I just jump back to see if I can get to Jimbo or to Nathan. Yeah, so they're riding along behind here.
Yeah.
Still, I mean, our D race is really broken up in comparison to those others. Perhaps went off very fast. Jimbo in 9th, and it looks like Nathan is just a little bit behind him, just a couple of seconds behind maybe. And maybe these riders are thinking, look, it's a long day in the saddle. Let's just take it a bit easier before we get to those hills. I mean, definitely, I think Nathan might be kicking himself for not sticking with Ollie there, because if Ollie and Nathan could get on the front and push on these flats and get a big enough gap to those hills, I think that they're going to be very, very fast on both of those hills. And that could be, it's a long race. It's going to be over 2 hours for these D riders, and 8 minutes to make up over, say, 2 hours, 2.5 hours is not that huge, and they could really make some big inroads here. And we've got Nathan Tully, Andrew Hayton, and Ladine Unser, Henry Bottoms, again of the SDW youth team, all within 10 minutes of Jimbo. So definitely every chance here for them to do some damage if they can get on the front and if they can really push it hard. Ollie Fussell now 40 seconds ahead, it looks like, of Jimbo, near enough, with this little group of 6 that are riding along. Another couple of riders off the front, just 1 or 2. But I think this little group here is going to be the one that makes it to the climb first, and certainly I think we're going to see Ollie Fussell put in a big effort there. He's, of course, he had that mechanical in the first race, and so he did get he did get a finish time, but it was the last place time, unfortunately. So he's currently 21 minutes off the pace of Jimbo. I think that is probably insurmountable at this point, but certainly he could be looking at maybe a 5th place finish in the overall GC if he can put in a huge effort here and, of course, on the ITT and just claw back some of that time that he's lost.
Yeah, actually, I think I have a hunch as to the SDW youth team's strategy here. I think they've realized, Nathan, he's got 8 minutes to close. I just don't think it's not very likely for it to happen, especially now that he's in this group with Jimbo. Ollie's out of the GC, but Ollie is only 1 point behind Jimbo in the KOM competition, and I think that might be what Ollie Fussell's targeting here. If he can get a gap, he could easily make up that 1 point on Jimbo in the KOM competition. He could walk home with that polka dot jersey at the end of Veganuary if he can make a nice gap right here on the flats. And I think Jimbo is not too worried about Ollie going off the front right now because Ollie's not really a contender in the GC anymore. So it looks like, really, if Nathan had gone with him, I think Jimbo might be chasing a little harder. But on the other hand, Nathan can sit back here. He can just sit in. He doesn't have to do any work for this group currently around Jimbo. Ollie can keep building his gap, and I think that might be the strategy here from the SDW riders, is to target that polka dot jersey.
It's really interesting to see what's happened in this D race, though. We've got Ollie Fussell up the road. Obviously, he's a lot further back in the individual GC. Jimbo and Nathan Tully are in this second group. And then I can see that Andrew Hayton for ART Nuclear is in another little group that's just being caught as we speak by a slightly larger peloton. So I am wondering now if this slightly larger group, I'm trying to see some of the riders in that, if any of them are signed up. We've got a Team Vegan in there. We've got Henry Bottoms is in that slightly larger group that's now formed up. So it looks like in the D race, we've got this group who are about maybe 30, 40 seconds back, it might even be. In fact, it's not even that much. It's only about 5, 6 seconds from that group that's got Nathan Tully in it and Jimbo. And I think this slightly larger group have thought, hey, look, we're not going to go crazy here. We're not going to go flying out. We're going to take it nice and easy, and we're going to save something for those hills, because we know the power of the blob is going to bring back these guys that have gone off. And that looks like exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of the riders in this front group may be non-sign-ups, might even be sandbagging here. And it looks like Ollie Fussell making a little sprint. Just got about 4 meters to the riders behind, putting in 9.5 watts per kilograms there and keeping it high. Emmer Bain is following, but he's got a decent gap to some of the riders back there, and I'm not sure what they're sprinting for right now. I think Ollie was maybe just trying to go off the front a little. There is another rider up the road, S. David. He is a Frenchman, and I'm not sure if he is signed up in the D race, but he's got about 8 seconds to this front group with Ollie Fussell here. So maybe Ollie trying to bridge that gap and make sure that he's right at the top in the standings. Now he's back on the back of this group. He's just kind of sitting in here. That was a big attack for a minute there, but the other riders were able to respond. So interesting dynamics in our D race, but I think it's time to head back over to one of our other races out on the road. So I'm going to actually...
As you pop back, I was just going to say, Kate, that second group that had Nathan Tully in it and Jimbo has now just been caught by the third group, and they are surging through pretty quick. Ollie Fussell there at the front has got about a 45-second gap to this group, but I wonder if it's going to last. Remember, they've got about 32 kilometres before that first climb, and I think we could see this group really bring that back. And then maybe we'll see the SDW youth squad really putting an effort together. I think there's 3 riders at least in this group now who may be able to put in a big effort together up that first hill and break away.
Yep, I agree. And the other thing, I wish that I was tech savvy enough to have all those gaps up there on the screen. live updating. We could see where our main pack is, where our pack containing the yellow jersey is, where Ollie is on the road. But, I'm not quite that tech savvy. I'm not tech savvy enough to really figure that out. But it would be interesting if we could see all the breakdowns to all the different groups on the road and who they contain. But I'm back with the A race now, and they just went under the 1 kilometer to go banner. So I believe they've already gone through the reverse mall sprint, and they're going through backwards through that reverse mall banner. So they're making good time of this course, 10 miles down so far in 20 minutes. That's quite a quick pace. And I'm in with Howell Davies right now, and he's pushing just at and above 4 watts per kilogram. So definitely a high pace in the A race currently. And it looks like our quality has improved as well in the A race, so that is good. Alright, so I believe they come down into this 6-way intersection here. And I am not even sure which way they head out, but I think it's a downhill no matter which direction they take, so just have to...
And look, you can see here the tactics that Howell's employing here. A really, a smart racer here. He's riding about 80th in this pack, and you might think, well, that's a bit dangerous, but actually, that's the place where he's going to be getting the most draft. He knows he's got these big hills coming up and that individual GC to protect. So I'm not surprised to see him not pushing the pace on the front of this. The bigger, heavier riders, as we saw, are going to be doing that. I can see another couple of green shirts around there. I think I might be able to see Reg Swallow, who's one of our vegan riders. In fact, it was him that was beating me at chess earlier. A very competent chess player and an incredibly powerful Zwift rider as well. So great to see him up there contending in the front of the A race.
The whole chess thing is kind of funny because I actually have a chess tournament later. So it seems like Zwifting and chess playing kind of goes hand in hand. Not sure if there's any real connection there, but just thought it was kind of a funny coincidence. I'm going to head over to the live Zwift power standings just to see where the riders are on course exactly. I know roughly, but I think they're getting pretty close to that first climb, that is Fox Hill, and it looks like they're about halfway there, just a little over halfway to the first climb of the day, and I think that's where we'll see the real selections happen, and I don't think that Howell Davies will still be sitting on the back 80th place anymore once we hit that hill.
No, I agree. But it'll be interesting to see what he does there again, because remember, he doesn't have to storm a huge win over everybody here. What he needs to do is maybe stay with the pack, especially on the first hill, because he definitely doesn't want to effort and end up at the very front of the race only to be brought back by a big group, because then he'll have wasted a whole load of energy that he's not going to have on Box Hill. So I think what we might see is that the group really stay together to some extent, probably whittle down, maybe, we'll lose a third on that first one, but these are some very strong A riders. So I am expecting to see it stay together for a large part.
Yeah, I am as well, and that seems to be the way it usually goes in the A race. Not usually groups going off the front, although last week on the Innsbruck KOM after party course, we did see Howell Davies go solo to the finish. I don't know if we'll see him try to open up his gap there. He only has 5 seconds to second place in that individual GC, which really isn't much to work with, especially with an individual time trial coming up. So it might be worth it for him to put in a little effort on the hill and try and form a breakaway, get a little time in the GC going into the time trial.
I did just see his watts drop to 0 there. Now, I'm not sure whether that was maybe a little dropout that he had. He has now sprinted back on. Maybe he's just practicing his team time trial skills there. The sink and sprint, just cut your watts, drop to the back so you're in the biggest draft, and then do a little sprint to catch back on. It may well have been something like that, but, he looked like he was in the danger zone just for a couple of seconds there. So I'm glad to see that he has caught back on and he is now in that group.
Yeah. I am as well, and I was wondering what was happening there. He's starting to drift off the back, so I didn't notice that his watts had dropped to 0. I thought maybe he was just struggling at the back there, but I think your scenario is much more likely. And, he has dropped down to 0 watts again. I think, back up to 398. I am thinking maybe these aren't dropouts. That seemed pretty intentional to me.
Yeah, perhaps it's just managing his position in that group, just thinking, I definitely don't want to be going too far forward. Of course, the drifting mechanic, the drafting mechanic in Zwift is, it's a bit contentious among some people, and it's quite hard to manage sometimes. You phase through the riders in front of you, and you can just, when you're at the back of a group, put in a bit of an effort to catch on, and then suddenly find yourself going all the way through to the front, hitting that air, and then slowing right down and being pushed right out the back again. So it may well be that he's just dropping his watts quite significantly to make sure he doesn't end up in that position where he's right at the front and gets slowed down quite significantly.
Yep, and as you mentioned that, he just moved up to the front, actually, third place there. And I was having a quick conversation with Liam Bard. I believe he is a No Pins R3R rider in the chat, and he said they say that GTR Gringo eats nothing but steak. So that's an interesting diet choice considering this is Veganuary. And back to the race, actually. Howell Davies back to 0 watts again, and the pack is running away from him.
I think that must have been some sort of dropout issue there. May well be having issues. Can see the watts going really huge now, trying to catch back up. I can't see that was a tactic that you'd ever want to employ, because now look at the speed he's having to do and look at the watts he's having to push. 8.6 watts a kilo trying to get back onto this group. Ahead of them, they're only doing 3.5. It really shows you the power of the pack there. They're doing 47 kilometers an hour. Can he get back on to this group? I really hope he can. It'd be a real shame to lose him as our leader in the Team GC. It does look like he's just about made it back there.
Yep. And just to clarify, the individual GC, I think you meant not the Team GC. And also, I think...
So.
Yeah, no. We are going to be trying to talk to Howell Davies post-race today, so maybe we can ask him what's happening here. And
definitely.
Real quick, another rider that I'm seeing on the radar here is Kristen Kolchinski. She's a pro female rider on Zwift. I don't know if she's won any of the ZRL stages yet, but she's definitely a strong rider in the ZRL. So we'll have to keep our eyes on her too. All right, I'm going to try and head back over to the B race as our frame rate's dropping quite a bit here in the A race. The riders are kind of bunching up here. So I'm going to see if we're doing better over in the B race. We haven't been over there in a little while. Going over to looking at the live data, and it looks like a David Berra, Swift Power having some issues there. It says David Berra has finished, and I do not think that that's possible without cheating. So that's interesting.
I've dropped him with Carol Smeets, who's always he's a go-to for me to find because he's one of my friends on Zwift, so it's always easy for me. He's actually pushing on the front here, pushing some really big watts for a B rider, 350, about 5 watts a kilo. Putting in a huge effort. He must have known I'd be following him on my screen. If you drop in with him, he's putting in a huge effort here. A little orange cap on, just leading out the group. On an orange Tron bike and really pulling things apart a bit. Maybe wanting to, maybe a bit of a tactic here for his vegan teammates to try to break things up a bit. If we go over to the B standings actually, and just see if I can find where he is. So he's currently in 13th, about 2 minutes 57 off the pace. So perhaps he's thinking, look, I'm going to do a big effort here. I'm going to try and claw back some time on this individual GC by putting some hurt on the riders behind me and get a bit of an advantage going into these first few hills.
How far did you say he was off the leader in the GC?
He's about 2 minutes 30 off of the GC lead. It's nearly 3 minutes, 2 minutes 57. He is off the GC lead. So that's going to be hard to bring back. But certainly he's also got Martin van der Vis, who we rode with before, is only 28 seconds off the lead. Ross Hetherington currently leading it for race 3R. They're both Team Vegan badgers. We've got Jane Geddes is also a Team Vegan badger. So maybe there's a bit of working together there. Think, look, let's work together as a vegan group. A little pounce of, vegans all going along together, pushing the pace, trying to speed this up and put some hurt on the other GC leaders.
All right, well, it looks like he's dropped back into the pack now. I'm actually going to give him a ride on for that effort. That was pretty impressive. But, yeah, definitely this field is dotted with those green vegan jerseys. And as you said, you pointed out a couple of those riders there. So it'll be interesting to see if we see any other Team Vegan team tactics or Team Vegan Badgers team tactics in here. Because Karel Smeets and Martin van der Vis are both up there in the GC. They've got a little bit of time to claw back, but I think it's doable, especially with the ITT coming up. And I think we'll just have to keep our eye on them, see what happens when we hit the KOM. But I'm going to head over to our C race now, actually, because we haven't checked in with them in a while. And after that, I definitely want to see what's going on in the D race, because I think that's arguably our most interesting category right now. Lots of different dynamics going on in that race. Chris, any last minute words on the B race before we switch over?
Oh, I think you're right. I mean, we certainly whittled this group down. I can see I'm with now Jonathan Jones, who's another vegan rider, very strong rider, Welsh rider there, pushing the pace. He's riding currently in about 40th, 50th place. So it looks like at the back of that group, we've got about 50, maybe a little bit more riders that it's really whittled down to. So a third of the pack, all at the front there, a third of the whole race have kept together and are going to be working together now towards that first hill. And just looking at the live stats to see where they are, they're about 23. So they've got another 10k of this before they hit that first big climb. And then I think it's really going to explode. Martin van der Vis, obviously one of the riders to watch there, and actually Jonathan Jones as well. He's another light rider, and I think they're going to be wanting to put some big efforts in on those hills and really break away some of the heavier boys there.
I'm just in the chat right now, and it looks like just my prediction from what I've seen in the chat is that the no pins R3R riders will be all in for Zach Harner, because both Chris Smart, aka GTR Gringo, and Liam Bard, the two no pins riders that we've seen in the chat, have given Zach Harner some praise. They both say that he's got it in the A race. So I'm thinking maybe the rest of the no pins R3R squad will also be working for Zach Harner there. And it will be interesting to see if maybe if he has a whole team working from him, it'll be that much easier to take the win in the A race.
Definitely, Kate. I think we're going to see a lot more team tactics here than perhaps we have on the other stages, with it being so much longer. And of course, if you can work as a team, if you can give your GC leader that bit of recovery that they might need. A lot of these riders will have done the WTRL team time trials. They'll know how to ride as a group and how to work together. That could be the difference between first and 10th, maybe even lower in this race, if you've got someone there, a wheel to follow, a friendly wheel to follow. And it's always just, I think, something that we find with the vegan jerseys particularly. It gives you a bit of a boost when you look around in the peloton and you've got people wearing the same jersey as you that you know are your teammates and are there and can support you.
Yep, I agree. I know. Whenever I'm in a peloton and I see the Rhinos use the Camo 1 jersey, the Digicam. No, I think it's the Camo 1 jersey usually. And just seeing those familiar blue and gray and white colors is definitely helpful, knowing that you've got a rider there to help out. And I think you're right. I think we will see some more team tactics. And right now, I just switched over to the C race a little while ago, but we haven't really had a chance to talk about it. And I'm in with Evelyn Bunnick, one of our vegan racers here. And I'm also seeing a couple of TFC jerseys. Do you know if they are registered? I'm going to check the spreadsheet, I think.
Yeah, we have got a lot of TFC riders across all of the different categories. I'm just looking in the C category. They certainly are, and they're actually coming up second in the Team GC in the C category. They're behind BRT by an average. So remember, the Team GC, the way it works is it's the average of your fastest riders. So I think TFC have currently got 4 riders that have done all of the races. So we take the average of their 3 best riders across the whole series, and they're currently 3 minutes behind the BRT team. BRT have 5 riders in at the moment, so it's the best 3 of them. So definitely TFC all grouped together here, and I think we may have a couple of other TFC riders that have joined in to try and lend a hand to some of those riders at the front.
I think I'm going to switch over to our D race right now, actually, because our A racers are coming up on the early slopes of Fox Hill, and I think we need to see their climb of Fox Hill, because that's going to be an important tactical point on the course. And I do want to try and check in with the D race before we head back to the A race. So I'm gonna head in with them right now, and we'll see if Howell Davies has managed to stay in that group, if he's been able to fix that dropout problem. So I think we're agreeing that that's most likely a dropout, right?
Yeah, it did seem to be. So let's hope that that's something that's either resolved or he's been able to work through. Certainly, it's so frustrating. Zwift is such a great platform, and it's so much fun to do, but it's the most frustrating thing in the world. We saw it with Ollie Fussell, and we know how frustrated he was at that dropout that he had in race number 2. And it can be the slightest thing. We've got this wireless connection between bike and computer. A fellow Team Vegan, in fact, it was John Jones, who we were riding with before, was telling me that his washing machine, the motor in that is a DC washing machine, and it was causing issues with his Ant Plus. So it can be anything around. I've certainly had dropouts when we put the microwave on to heat up something to eat in the kitchen, and suddenly you've just lost all your connection. Incredibly frustrating. So all I can say is, Howell, if you've got your microwave on or you're doing a wash, for goodness sake, try and get it off so that you can keep that connection and you can contend for the GC win.
Well, actually, I know I said I was going to go in with the D race, but I checked in with our A race real quick there, and Howell is still in the group, so that's definitely good to hear. But I'm back with the D race now, and we're in with Jimbo Vin. He is currently 55 seconds off the back of the group containing Ollie Fussell, and it looks like other SDW. Leo Hughes has also managed to bridge the gap up to Ollie Fussell's group, and it looks like Nathan Tully's up here as well. So now Nathan Tully this could be big. Nathan Tully now has that 55-second gap on Jimbo, and Nathan Tully is the second place rider in the individual GC and the D race. So this will definitely be interesting. Those SDW riders were able to bridge the gap and leave Jimbo behind.
And that's exactly what they need to do, Cade. They need to work on getting as big a gap as they possibly can on this flatter part of the course, so that when they get to those hills, they can really make because I've no doubt that the SDW riders are going to be some of the fastest up there, obviously being incredibly light. In the real world, I think a very young rider who's very light, they might struggle to keep with some of the bigger adult riders, but actually on Zwift, because it just works out your watts per kilo, they're able to compete at the same level as some of the older riders around them, some of the older, heavier riders. We can see a lot of those. It's like the Bumblebee jersey, isn't it, that the SDW riders use.
Yep.
I can see L. Hughes there from SDW also riding with them. Ladine Unser is in that group, another one of our favourites from this. And I think I also saw Hayton in there as well, who's the ART rider. So a lot of the big favourites have made it into what seems to be this front group and are going to be powering on towards that hill. I do think we've got a few riders who are completely off the front of this, but I don't believe that they are actually. I'm just riding with Ollie Fussell now, and I don't believe that the group that are right ahead are actually riders who are taking part in the Veganuary sign-up league. So we're not too worried about them. As you said, there are quite a few riders who are C and B who joined in the category incorrectly, but it looks like with our actual sign-ups, all of the contenders are in that big group that we were riding with there, with all the SDW riders in it.
Yep, and it looks like the gap to Jimbo has gone out to over a minute and 13 seconds now from Nathan Tully to Jimbo. Nathan, of course, needs 8 minutes, which is a tall task. He's got to bring back a lot of time here, but I think it's a possibility. And he's sitting just off the back of this main group here right now. As you said, Leo Hughes also up here as well. Henry Bottoms and Ollie Fussell, so all the SDW youth riders in the race. And I do want to mention, I did an interview with these guys just last Sunday after Veganuary. It's for an individual video I'm making separate from Veganuary about youth riders on Zwift, but it was really fun to talk to all of them, and it seems like they're really coming out on top here in this D race.
You just see there that Nathan Tully, who I'm just riding with, just came off the back a little bit, and I'm not sure whether it was intentional or not, but it looked like all the SDW riders grouped around at the back of that group and helped him get back on. So there could be what we're seeing here is some really good teamwork from SDW, all helping each other out. Just looking at the standings, Nathan Tully's next in line at 8:22 off Jimbo. So you're right, it's a tall order, but if he's already got a minute on him, we could well be seeing that come down a massive amount in this race, especially with those hills. But Andrew Hayton is then only 2 seconds behind Nathan, and Ladine Unser is 1 second behind, and then it's Henry Bottoms. We've got a minute gap there. So actually, we could see, if this group can stick together and work on those hills, we could see Jimbo go down into 4th place today, which would be incredible given the gap that he's actually managed to create over the first 3 races.
Yep, and I'm going to head back with our A race now, actually. Hate to cut the D race short here, but they've still got a little while on the flats, and our A race is approaching Fox Hill right now, so I'm going to head on over into the A race. We don't want to miss that. I'm feeling like I was pretty off with my favorites today. Maybe I called Jimbo in this race, and he hasn't even managed to stay with the group on the flats, which is where I expected he'd be the strongest. So I'm feeling a little off there, and I think I went with Howell in the A race, and now he's having some dropout issues. I think he's still okay,
but it looks like he's doing very well now, riding at about 9th or 10th, right at the front of this group. And we can see on the map that big A group, I mean, if you look backwards, I'm using the free cam to look down the road, and it's just a long line of riders now, already on 9% for Howell Davies riding up this hill. It's already pretty tough, and we can see that the selection is starting. Riders pushing off the front here. Let's see how they manage to stay together. Some feathers being dropped, obviously some riders feeling like that's the right place to do it, and they're only about a third of the way into this hill, so quite early on to be dropping those feathers. If they could, I'm sure they would hang on to them for the very end, when we might see riders pushing to get off the front.
Yep, I'm in with Howell right now, and some good news, our frame rate has improved a bit now that the race is spreading out, but it looks like Hubble is sitting right around the top 10 here. I see a no pins R3R rider, and that is in fact Zach Harner. That is our no pins favorite for the day. Both Liam Bard and Chris Smart have voiced their confidence in Zach Harner for the win today, and he is in fact up here, right around 3rd, 4th place, definitely in the top 5 or top 10 here. So Zach Harner up here, and he could do it as well. I think there's lots of favorites that we need to keep our eye on in this front group here. I know we saw Leonard Tugels was I like to call it the Zwift Power winner on the day from last week, because he's not signed up, but he was on Zwift Power. But I don't see him racing this week, because otherwise he'd be having a field day with these climbs. And then Tyler Hannay from the Canyon Dev Squad is up here as well, and I think that's another rider we definitely need to keep our eyes on. Anybody you've picked out from this pack, Chris?
I was just looking, because actually if we look at the individual GC in A, it's Howell Davies, Zach Harner, who we know are in this race. Then 3rd and 4th is Adam C., who's actually a vegan rider, goes by Psychopath on the Zwift. He doesn't appear to be in this race. Chris Smart, who's Gringo, we know is also not in this race. So that means we may see them drop out of the individual GC, and we may see a bit of a change up in the team GC as well. The next rider then is Robert McEwen of TFC, and then Nick Hurd after him from Cryogen. So I'm going to have a look in a moment to see whether they are in this race as well. But certainly we could see a big change up in the individual GC in the A race. But certainly the big news is going to be between who can win out of Howell Davies and Zach Harner. Definitely our 2 favourites for this race, BRT versus No Pins R3R. And we've already said that it looks like No Pins have put in some riders here to really help Zach Harner out and hopefully get him the win. And they're certainly putting their stock in him to do that.
Yep, and I just wanted to add Matt Looker, another No Pins rider, says +1 for Zach. So we've got 3 riders pulling for Zach in the chat now. And we're hitting one of the steeper sections on the course. This is one of the Zwift glitches that actually bugs me quite a bit more than I feel like it should. But it's when this gradient bar, the 8% in the upper right-hand corner of the minimap, just goes right off the screen. And that's what's happening right now. But it's a 7% gradient, so not outrageous. I've always wondered why that happens. It must just be a bug. But up to 8% gradient now, and the point I was trying to make was it's definitely getting steeper here. We saw this climb has a much higher average gradient, or not much higher, but I think about 0.6% higher than the other side, around 4.9% average gradient. So this is definitely the steep section of the climb.
Looks like we're just about to peak here and just come over the crest of Fox Hill. And look at what the hill has done to that huge A group we had before. Howell Davis, as I said, I thought we might just do enough. He's not pushed off the front there. He's just, you can see him riding at the back of that group. And now that it starts to go downhill, have to work to just keep with those riders in front. I'm just trying to see Zach Harner there just behind him as well. You can see Howell doing a bit of a super tuck there, saving the legs as much as possible on that -7% gradient. But look, we've got this whole front group whittled down. I'm just going to see how big it actually is. It looks like it's down to a group of about 16 riders. So just out of 148, we're almost down to 10% of the field have reused that hill to just completely blow things apart. And another rider just dropping off the back there. Howell Davis now right at the back of that front group. And I think that's definitely going to stay together for the downhill. So that's our first bit of selection. And I wouldn't be surprised if this group now stays away for the remainder of the ride. They seem to have 5 seconds, maybe 12, 20 seconds back to the next group, which isn't particularly large. So it's going to be very hard for the majority of the riders to group back up and make any ground on that front group. In fact, as I just pop back further and further through the A pack, it's all really spread out and it's just little groups here and there. It's really done some damage, that first hill.
Yep, and I'm actually 2 riders, A. McGuire and S. Weiss, have tried to go off the front here. They made their attack coming into the top of the KOM, and they got their gap went out to about 4 seconds to the group behind, but it's now down to a second. And Eddie Houle has come to the front as well. Not a sign up, but the Cryo RDT rider can really ride. He made that breakaway with Leonard Tugels last race, so we could definitely be seeing some things from him. And now Zach Harner bridging the gap as well with his draft power up. And it looks like this group is coming back together. McGuire is getting spit out the back a little bit here. And it looks like Zach Harner has a second on Howell Davies. And every second counts right now. I see Tyler Hannay up here as well. Because looks like Howell only has 5 seconds to work with here. So if these riders could get a little gap to Howell Davies, it could make a big difference in the long run.
And at this point in the race, Cade, just being a couple of seconds off the back of this group is going to be really, really dangerous, because even a small group like this of, say, I think we're down to about 15 riders now, maybe even less, when they blob up at the bottom here, which I'm sure they will do, and start to push, a lone rider off the back of there is going to have a real tough time getting back on terms with them. So I expect all of these riders now will be really focusing on, you can see them super tucking, trying to get the recovery in as they come down this hill, but just popping out the back of this group is going to be really dangerous. So I'm expecting to see Howell just coming to the back of the group now. Is there going to be some big watts? Yes, there he goes straight up to about 600 watts to make sure he sprints back on and stays with that group.
Yep, so the riders I see left in this group here are Zach Harner and Hubble Davies, our favorites today, as well as Tyler Hannay, who I think could definitely be an outside favorite for the win today. He rides for the Gagnon Dev squad, and I've seen him pull out a win before. I think it was in the TFC Autumn Series race, up against some pretty big names there as well. So I wouldn't count Tyler Hannay out yet either. A. McGyver also in this group. He tried to get a gap off the front earlier, right around the top of the KOM, and it looks like he's managed to stay in the group as well. So that'll all be interesting, and I think I don't know, do you think this group will break up on Box Hill?
I think we might be seeing the winners of the race there. I think that group is probably strong enough that they're going to stick together on Box Hill. And it's such a steep downhill on the other side. They've just gone up Fox Hill. They'll be going down it. It is steeper that way. So I think that even if you could get a couple of seconds on the next, on the pack, that pack may well then be coming back at you on the other side of that hill. I've just dropped in with B. I don't know whether you want to look there, but they are just now cresting the top of that hill. And it's Hugill who's at the front of that. He's managed to break away with just one other rider, B. Godwin. And Jane Geddes then is in third place. So she's done incredibly well to really push on those hills and make it into third. Emma Flatter just behind her. And then Hetherington that we said is the current leader in B, currently riding in 5th place. So we could see there a big mix-up. Definitely Jane Geddes, where's she? About 1 minute 30 off, so not quite got the time yet, but Evan Flatter only 57 seconds off Ross Hetherington. So it looks like we might see a bit of a mix-up there. Derrick Mcintyre is currently our 2nd place rider. He's a vegan Badger, I believe. Oh, no, sorry, riding for the vegan Barracudas. He's currently in 3rd place with a little bit of a gap to the riders behind him. So some of the favourites obviously making it up there very well. And Alan Hugo, I'm just trying to see where he is. He's currently riding in 4th in the individual GC. He's off the front with about 10 seconds. So he's going to need another 23 seconds to catch up to Ross Hetherington, but every chance of doing it with the gap that he's already got and maybe extending that on the next hill.
Yep, and one of the riders that you mentioned before was Evan Flatter. I'm not sure how to pronounce that exactly, but he was my favorite on the day. He was my B favorite, and I'm in with Jane Geddes right now. But I think Evan Flatter, definitely another one to watch. I think he can climb, but he also has a decent sprint, so we'll have to keep our eye out for him as well.
You can see that group, if you're following Jane Geddes, that group there has got Jane Geddes in it, Ross Hetherington, Derrick McIntyre, Martin van der Vis. So all of the top riders there. And it looks like we can see Alan Hugill is up the road, but that gap of 10 seconds is now down to 4. And it doesn't look like he's going to keep away. So the work he did on that hill is going to have hurt him to some extent. And then the GC contenders are all going to catch him up and probably swallow him up, and hopefully he's able to stick with them as they pass on the downhill. It's always tough in Zwift when you have a bigger group behind you come past on the downhill because you've got to put in such a big effort. Let's see what happens. Here they come to catch him up. Is he going to be able to sprint on to the back of this group on the downhill? It's going to take a massive effort, I would imagine. See his watts just spike there as they blow through. He's just pushing 5.5. Can he catch on to the back? It's a really tall order. He's not making up much ground here. And as I said, you see him drop that...
Sorry about that.
Power.
I just switched over to the A race, so you'll have to let us know what's happening with the B race. I just switched right before you said they were catching. I'm sorry about that.
That's not to worry. Right, so he did just drop a draft power-up, and he has managed, Alan Hugill, to get back into that group. And that group has within it Ross Hetherington, Derrick McIntyre, Martin van der Vis, Evan Flatter, all of the favourites. Jane Geddes is in there as well. I'm just trying to see who else is in there. D. Hunt, I believe, is one of our riders. Yet he's currently in 6th. So as we might have expected, all of the top riders in the B category GC have managed to stick together in that front group. And I think this is going to be, as we saw with the A race, a little small group that is probably going to stay away now, at least until the next hill, where again, they're going to have a big advantage.
I'm in with the A race right now, and they're just coming up on the 1K to go banner to the sprint. And I'm going to take a quick break here, but if you want to walk us through the sprint point in the A race, Chris, that would be great. We're watching Howell Davies right now.
Well, I'll just jump over to Howell as well so that I can see how we do in the sprint. I think, as Cade said earlier, this sprint can be a slightly tough one. It's a little bit uphill. We're just coming up to that 1K to go banner. So let's see how they deal with this. A lot of, see Howell Davis riding on the Tron there. A lot of Trons in this front group. It was obviously a very popular choice. A couple of Canyon Aerodes, the new Canyon that came out, was for a small amount of time the fastest bike I think you could get uphill, and a very strong contender for Aero, but I think had a little bit of a nerf. I can see an S-Works Venge in there as well, but mostly the Tron bike, so that obviously being the favourite. Okay, here we go. We're just turning, coming towards that sprint. You can see on the map the red road of the Mall, currently doing 43, 44 kilometers an hour. Remember, this is a fastest through the banner. So these riders may be thinking, well, perhaps we're not even going to win this in terms of the fastest through, and we're going to just work on keeping that gap to the riders behind and preserve our individual GC. Who have we got? We've currently got Zach Harner near the front of this, already wearing a green jersey. Actually, I think he's won the reverse sprint. Let's see what he does here to push this out. Yeah, we're not seeing some huge watts here. One rider going off the front, pushing some big watts. N Hurd, I'm not sure if he's actually a sign up. Howell Davis here, pushing out 15, 14 watts a kilo, really making a big effort there to get that win on the forward sprint. And I'm not sure if I can see, unfortunately, the times that they did there. It looks like Howell Davis coming through pretty far up the field, and Hull there as well. Putting out a big effort. Yeah, Hull Davis actually went off the front there. So one of those two riders, it looks like, ahead. So definitely a big effort from him, and currently following behind N Hurd. So a big effort there. Let's see if that's helped him in the sprint competition. Obviously, he is currently... I'm just having a look in my spreadsheet as to where he was in the sprint. He's fourth in the sprint competition at the moment on 27 points. Nick Hurd ahead of him, so it looks like Nick may have picked up some points there as well. Only 1 point separating them. Oliver Milk is our leader in that competition, and then Chris Smart. Chris Smart obviously not riding today. I'm not entirely sure about Oliver Milk. I certainly haven't seen him yet, so it may be that we see a bit of a change up there in the sprint competition with Nick Hurd and Hull Davies pushing to the front. I know I have seen Olivia Simmons was riding today, but I'm not sure whether they're in this front group as to whether they will be pushing for that sprint that we've just seen. But a big effort there from all the riders. Certainly Hull Davies pushing there, trying to pick up some sprint points. Remember, there's only 2 places to get sprint points today. That was one of them, and it was a fastest through the banner. And the second is going to be first through the finish line. So I'm hoping we will see a big sprint there as well. And certainly these riders, Hull and Nick Hurd, are in prime position to pick up maximum points there for the sprint competition.
Yep. Chris, do you mind if I interrupt you for just a minute? I don't know that I heard you. Is Nick Hurd registered for Veganuary or not?
Yeah, Nick Hurd is registered. He's currently third in the sprint competition on 28 points, and then Hull Davies is on 27 points in fourth place, just behind him. So a real battle there that we saw between the two of them as they pushed through that sprint. It's a fastest through. Unfortunately, it didn't. It was showing me the B numbers rather than the A numbers.
Yeah, so I had our A numbers. Just by the way, I can tell you, Nick Hurd had the fastest time, I believe, and Hull Davies had the second fastest. Just confirmation on that. I did not have third, fourth, or fifth. I didn't quite catch those, but did you see the B numbers? What were the B numbers?
I didn't know, actually. I was just trying to watch the A riders go through, but maybe we'll be able to see that on the Primes tab shortly. I'm not sure when they update that on Zwift. We may have to wait for the end. Oh no, in fact, we have got some. Not only yet the London Sprint forward. Nick Hurd and then Hull Davies. But unfortunately, I can't change that to the B riders yet. So we might have to wait until the end of the race to see how they've done there. I'm not sure. Have the B riders gone through the sprint yet?
I am not positive. Actually, I just jumped in with the C race, but we can check on our B race as well, because I think we might even be able to catch their sprint. I'm just gonna try and jump in with Martin Vandervis. If you want to try and jump in with him as well, one of the.
Yeah, I'm just doing this.
Okay. All right.
Okay, so it looks like actually a way off the sprint yet.
Yep, they're just about to head through the 1K to go banner here, I think. So
yeah. Let's see how they deal with this. Jane Geddes there at the front pushing, Ross Hetherington as well. So all our leaders here. Martin, I can see on my screen, is just taking it easy at the back with Alan Hugill, trying to save those watts, maybe thinking he's going to put in a big effort here. I think it might be difficult. I don't know how big the groups are behind. You can see on the map a couple of smaller B groups going through. If there's a really large B group, then you might see some fastest times from them, because obviously in Zwift, using the draft and coming from the back of a group and pushing all the way through is the best way to get the fastest time. With only what looks like 12 riders in this group, it may be difficult to get a fastest time through here, but it all depends on how strong those riders are behind and how big their group is. So here we go. It's just this little roundabout, and then we go onto that red road of the Mall. And let's see what happens with Martin's watts here. Currently pushing 2.6, so taking it very easy. I'd imagine that's zone 1 for him. Onto the red mat we go of the mile. Let's see what he does. Are we going to see somebody ramp it up here early to try and get some speed before the sprint banner, or is it going to be as we cross over the start that everybody explodes?
Well, also, I'm just looking here. Jane Geddes also in this group, and I think she's up there in the women's sprint as well. So it'll be interesting to see if she wants to try and go for that also, but it doesn't look like anybody is really that interested. All right. Oh, sorry. Excuse me. And Hodgson going off the front.
Yeah.
I think
And
he was just thinking, no.
15 watts a kilo I just saw there, absolutely storming through. Look at the cadence, 120 RPM pushing through that banner. So Evan Flatter got the fastest time there. And I'm just going to have a look. I believe he is our sprint leader at the moment. So he's going to have picked up some more points there towards that.
Yeah, assuming he gets the fastest time, because I think we could maybe even see a faster time from a larger group farther back.
Yeah, it's definitely possible, but on the numbers we have there at the moment, Evan Flatter will have picked up, I think, 20 points there, pushing him a bit further into the lead. It just dropped off, but I saw Ross Hetherington, I think, was about fifth, and Alan Hugel, I think, came in second or third there. So some really big numbers. And remember, these guys have just gone up Fox Hill. They've been pushing really hard to stay off the front, and nonetheless, they've put out a huge effort there through that banner.
Yep,
yeah, in fact, a rider from Islington Cycle Club has managed to take the top spot from Evan Flatter. Then it's Hodgson from OTR. I'm not sure if they're a sign up, and a L'Equipe rider that's come in just behind them. So you're quite right, actually, that in fact, some of those top spots have been taken. Alan Hugel, though, manages to hang on to 8th for the time being.
Yep, and I just jumped in with our C race here, actually. And it looks like interesting here, because Evelyn Bunnick, who is my favorite for in the C race, has been dropped about 25 seconds off the back of the front group. So it looks like the only two favorites that I think I have left in the race with a shot are Howell Davies and Evan Flatter, the rider that just took the sprint in the B race, and that's for a mixed cat. And then I think Jane Geddes definitely has a good shot at the win over in the B race. And Ladine Unser definitely doing well in the D race as well. So I think those two competitions, we could probably even safely say that they're locked up unless a rider has a mechanical. But I see Patch Harvey here. That's Patrick Harvey from the BRT squad, and he has made this front group. He's definitely one of our favorites in the C race going into this today. So I think we'll have to keep our eyes on him as well. I think we'll try and stick with our C racers through the sprint, Chris.
Yeah, good idea. I mean, I could see that there are actually a few other riders off the front of this group, and I'm just trying to check. We've got M. Paco, who's currently in first, with S. Smith behind him. I'm not sure whether any of those riders are actually signed up to the Veganuary. So I think actually that the race, as you pointed out, does really start for our purposes with that group that Patrick Harvey's riding in that have made the selection. Interesting to see there, as you said, that we've lost Evelyn Bunnick from this group. I'm not sure, obviously we've missed that, so not sure when that's happened. And there's actually a few little groups. I can see Chalu, who's one of our vegan riders, who is about 26 seconds off of that group that's got Patrick Harvey in it. She's not doing too badly, I don't think, in the overall categorization. And then Evelyn, 24 seconds back from that. So that may well hurt her chances of catching up to Patrick Harvey. I can see Jason Feltus as well there in a little group, about 24 seconds back. So Patrick Harvey's done well here. He has put in a bit of a dig on his nearest competition.
All right,
David Hill, second group.
Sorry about that. Go ahead. All right, I'm just heading over with Howell Davies now, because our A race is hitting the early slopes of Box Hill, and I don't think we want to miss this. Are you still with us, Chris? Okay, that's good. All right, so I went on over it with Howell Davies in the A race, and it looks like him, Tyler Hannay, still in this front group, and I see Zach Harner there as well. And they're pushing around 7 watts per kilos. I don't know, are you in our A race right now?
I can see we've got a rider, S Swiss, who's pushing 9 watts a kilo or thereabouts off the front there. I don't believe that they are a sign up. I'm just looking, I'm trying to recognize any of the names that I can see. Um, we've got Hull there, who's in that main group. And I think really what's going to be going on here is that Zach Harner and Hull Davis are going to be looking at each other and thinking, well, look, we only need to race one another here. We're the front riders in this group. So let's just keep it together and push hard here. I mean, doing some incredible numbers here. 7 watts a kilo. I can see Hull is doing up this particular part of the climb. Behind there, we've got Hull Davis just pushing 7 watts a kilo. So some incredible performances up this hill. And bear in mind, we're 50 kilometers into this race at this point, an hour 5 of pretty hard riding already.
Yep. And I'm with S. Weiss right now. As you said, not a sign up, so we can take a look at him real quick here. But I think I'm gonna head back with the main group because that's where the real fight will be going on between Zach Harner and Howell Davies and maybe Tyler Hannay as our outside favorite there. And I dropped in the chat last call for predictions. So who do you guys think is going to win the A race? I know we've got no pins rooting for Zach Harner, and I think it's likely that Howell Davies could do well too. Liam Bard said attacks to come on the painted road section, and we were just going through there. I wonder if that was part of the team tactic for the no pins riders, maybe to attack on the painted road section. Could that even be a tip at their strategy there? But we'll just have to see what Zach Harner does as we come around this last section. I think there's one more section of painted road in orange before the finish.
Yeah, definitely. And interestingly, I'll just pick up on N Hurd, who's one of our sprint leaders, is now 20 seconds off the back of that front group. So it looks like Hull Davis is going to, if he can stay with that front group and make it to the first across the line and come in the top 10, he's going to get some points on Nick Hurd there, who was leading that sprint competition, certainly would have come away with the most points at the last out of himself and Hull Davis.
In the chat, Matt Looker just said Scotty is only doing this with one leg as well. So I'm assuming he's referencing Scott Gleason there, and I'm not sure where Gleason is, but I see Eddie Houle going hard off the front here, from the Priority T squad. I think he came through first. We're getting about pretty much everybody took the Fox Hill jersey. If you look at the leaderboard right now, they all had fast times through there, and it looks like A. MacGyver is still up here as well. So I don't know. Is he a sign up, Chris? Have you seen that?
Don't believe so. No, I think in terms of the KOM competition, that was being led by Hull Davies with Psychopath just behind him and Anti-Veil, who I don't think is in this group. Then Tim Elskins and Zach Harner. So I think the two riders to look out for there are Hull Davies, who's on 33 points overall, and Zach Harner. So I'm assuming that given they're both in this group together, they're going to be pretty even on the points through both of those. So I would imagine that Hull's going to maintain his lead in the KOM competition. And look, here we go. That was that little rise I was talking about, a little break off the front there. Some riders being dropped. Can they push to catch back on?
Yep. And
actually riders. Oh no, in fact he's not. I can see him in the green Zwift jersey from where he's won one of the sprints. He's managed to stay with that. And this group now, I imagine, will roll in together down to the bottom of this hill, back to those escalators, and then the final push into the start-finish line.
Kind of our chat expert, I guess we could say, Matt Looker, has dropped the tip that Zim is one to watch for sprinting, and I'm actually in with Zim right now. His name is Zim, Z-I-M. So I guess we'll have to watch for him in the sprint as well. I don't know. I've never actually seen this rider in a Zwift race before, and I don't think I've seen the name Zim on the signups list, but I don't know what his real name is either, so we'll have to watch for Zim in the sprint as well. Alright, it looks like this group is still staying together, and I think we're going to stay with them until the finish because we're getting pretty close to that now. And as I said earlier in the stream, it was my prediction that we were going to have a we're going to have a reduced bunch sprint, and I think that that's what it's going to come down to here. So hopefully.
Yeah, definitely. Those 12 to 14 riders that have managed to break away are going to be the ones contending for all the points there on the line and getting a good jump on the competition in the individual GC. I've actually, whilst you're watching them, I've just been cycling through some of the other leaders in the race. Back in the B race, I can see Derrick Mcintyre, who is pretty high up in that B individual GC, is currently, looks like he's leading out Ross Hetherington and the whole of that front group. Alan Hugill is in front there, pushing pretty hard on the front. He's got about 33 seconds to make up on Ross Hetherington. So Ross Hetherington's managed to stay in this group. I don't think we're going to see a change here. So it could all come down to now whether they can do some work on this hill to break away from Ross, or it's all going to be on that ITT next weekend.
All right. Well, in the chat, Matt Looker said, Zim is Adam Zimmerman, won U.S. Zwift champs the year before Holden Camo. So definitely a former U.S. Zwift champion is one to watch in the final sprint here as well. So glad we know who Zim is now. Thanks for the clarification, Matt. And they're just about to head on up the escalator. We talked about this a little bit earlier in the stream. It's kind of an interesting feature, and I've seen riders make an attack on it before. It'll be interesting to see how fast they can get up this escalator. But all the watts per kilograms going over 10 watts per kilograms for a minute there. And after that, it's pretty much flat down into the finish. And as I mentioned before, the finish is slightly uphill. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens there. All right, Chris, you want to give us your last-minute favorite between the No Pins R3R rider, that is Zach Harner, and Hywell Davies from the BRT?
I think it's really just a bit too close to call for me. We did see Hull Davies put in a really big sprint there on the Mall. So if he can repeat that, there's every chance that he's going to be able to take the win on this stage. But I'm sure that Zach Harner will be saving something in his legs for that big push to the line. These two fighting really, really hard for that top position. Zach Harner obviously needs 5 seconds on Hull Davies. So it may be that if we watch that there may be some effort to break away, or perhaps he just thinks, no, I'm going to save it and I'm going to try and claw back that time on the ITT.
Yep. I'm just getting Martin van der Vis ready because we're going to be heading in with him right after this finish here. And the finish is coming up quite shortly, 35 miles down. And it's interesting because I think it'll be quite a large gap between the finish to the A race and the finish to the D race. But the riders going off the front now, we see Eddie Houle leading out the sprint, heading down in towards the banner. Houle has got a decent-sized gap here, 20 meters to BB, the rider chasing behind. You think that they'll be able to close it, Chris?
I'm not sure. I mean, we've seen a lot of power-ups being dropped there, and I think maybe the power of the bunch is going to be able to bring that back. I'm riding with Zach Harner, who's just off the back of this group now. I'm just trying to see where Hull Davies is. I think he's ahead, pushing out 12 watts a kilo. I don't know whether Zach Harner is going to be able to bring that back. So it looks like Hull Davies, if he can keep this up, is going to maintain that lead. And in fact, he's going to stretch it out just that little bit more. Yes, I think it's probably going to be about 2 or 3 seconds maybe that he gets on Zach Harner. So well done, Hull Davies. Hopefully we can have a chat to him on the stream shortly. But a really, really strong effort there. I'm not sure, did you see, Cade, who actually came in with the win on that stage?
Well, it was Eddie Houle, who was our Zwift Power winner. But he is not a Veganuary registered rider. So then it came down to somewhere, it was either Hywell Davies or maybe Tyler Henne was up there as well. But I think Hywell might have been our Veganuary winner today. And Zach Harner was up there as well, just off the back of that group. Great performance from him too. But I'm going to head in with Martin van der Vis in our B race now, because we don't want to miss that. All right, it looks like van der Vis and this B pack is just coming up over the top of Box Hill. And Evan Flatter is still up here as well. As I said before, that's my favorite for today. And it looks like a rider off the front, A. Hugel. Do you know if Hugel is a sign-up?
That's Alan Hugel, so he is a sign up. Actually, Martin, who I'm just riding with, is struggling a little bit here, it looks like, to keep up with this group. Let's see if he can close that gap down. He's going to have to put in a bit of an effort. If he gets dropped here before the downhill, that's going to be really damaging. So come on, Martin, just a little bit of a push. It's so hard. His legs are going to be absolutely burning, but he just needs to do that little sprint effort to catch onto that line ahead of him. It's just so flat here. If it starts to go downhill, I struggle to see how he's going to make that gap back up. Little bit of a climb here. Can he push some watts up to 8.1? Come on, Martin. You've just got to push here to get back to that group.
Oh, it looks like we just had Howell Davies hop in on our Discord. Howell, can you hear us? All right, so we'll just Howell Davies, can you hear us? All right, so we'll
sorry, I can hear you.
Okay.
I wasn't pressing push.
All right, so congrats on your finish in the A race. We're watching our B race right now, and we'll have to probably interrupt you for the B race finish. But before we get down into the B race sprint, what was happening earlier on in the race? We saw you dropping down to 0 watts. Was that a tactical move, or were you having some dropouts?
No, I was having some issues. I got 3 devices dual recording, and there's just too many ant signals, and it just kept dropping out. So I turned them all off. Seemed to solve it.
Okay, and my second question for you, because we didn't quite catch it, do you know who was the first rider through the line after Eddie Houle?
Adam Zimmerman got second. I got third. He caught me on the line, but I knew he would.
Okay. All right, good to know. So I think that means that you'll maintain your position as first in the individual GC. So congrats on that. And before we have to head back in with the B race, I just want to ask you a couple more questions. So what will be your strategy going into the ITT, do you think? And you don't have to give too much away, I know. Lots of the racers watch the stream, but do you feel confident going into the ITT that you'll be able to hold on to this first place in the GC?
Today was just about seeing who you had to stay with. And I had to stay with Zach, but the field was super strong today. That was tough. But the time trial is far more predictable. It's just you and the clock, and that's my background. So I just lock into a 5.5 watts a kilo and just stay there. So that's all I'm doing. There's no tactic.
Yep. All right. Chris, do you have any questions for Howell?
I was just going to say, I mean, congratulations, Howell. That was amazing ride there. Those are some monster watts, 5.5 to be pushing for the ITT. So I suppose, as we're in Veganuary, I'll just finish off with any favourites for a vegan meal. Have you tried a vegan meal, or do you got any sort of favourites that you've tried?
Yeah, I love vegan food. It goes great with my steak. But I'm a big fan of burgers made with beans and cauliflower and onions and just whatever you throw in, and just mash it together and use that instead of greasy beef. So yeah,
there we go
with that.
But not giving up the steak just yet.
I'm getting there, but not yet.
All right, brilliant. Well, congrats today. That was an incredible ride. Just on those hills, we were watching you, obviously. What was the tactic there? Was it were you just thinking, look, I don't need to break away here, I just need to stick with it?
Well, there's not a lot of difference really, because I couldn't let Jimmy go. I had to try and chase Jimmy, and I was hoping I'd get a gap, but you just can't do anything. You're on the limit regardless of whether you're chasing or trying to stay in the group. So there's nothing you can do. If you watch my feed, I'm just pulling all sorts of faces, crying out and just hanging on for life. And it's just nothing you can do about it. You either attack or you get dropped.
So I guess the answer is you weren't taking it easy up those hills then.
No, limit every time. So right. Why not just go for a sprint, soften the legs a bit more?
Yeah, brilliant. Well, congrats on that. And obviously, I think we'll be able to hopefully put out the link to your stream when we do the Veganuary message that goes round with the results.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks. Just love the pain.
All right, I hate to interrupt here, but we are heading down into the finish to the B race. And Hubble, before we let you go, who is your pick for the winner of the B race? I don't know if you've been paying much attention, but I know you've got a couple no pins riders in there. Hugo.
I don't care. I don't care about no pins. It's BRT, so go Patch.
All right. So, yeah, sorry about that. I was thinking about the wrong team, just looking in chat for a minute. But yep, so Patrick Harvey is your pick for the winner of the B race, and that's good to know because I don't see him on the leaderboard here, but I think he's still in this front group. So Patrick Harvey is your pick.
I can't see anything, sorry.
Yep.
Patrick's a C rider, so he wouldn't be in the B race, but just looking at whether we've got any BRT. I'm not sure if there's any BRTs.
I don't know. I don't know. I'm sorry. I've been watching this. I'm just watching myself cool down.
Yep. All right,
No
that's
worries.
fine. So we're just about to come into the finish of the B race, but before we let you go, I just want to say congrats one more time, Howell, and great job maintaining your first place position in the individual GC.
Thanks, guys. Great job.
All right.
So,
And don't forget, viewers, to check out Howell's stream. But now back in with the B race. It looks like we've got McIntyre launching a sprint here. You see B. Godwin going off the front. B. Godwin is that rider in the white and pink. And the banner is not quite in sight yet, but we can see it on the mini map. And D. McIntyre from Team Vegan, I don't know if you know this rider, Chris. Looks like he's the one going off the front here.
And he's got a little bit of a gap to the riders behind him. Let's see if he can keep it. I think they may well bring him back here. He might have gone just a little bit too early. We can see some huge numbers now from these riders. Is he going to keep a gap on Ross Hetherington? That's his main competition. Ross Hetherington just bringing him back. And it looks like it's Evan Flatter across the line from our riders that are signed up. So a really big effort from him there. And well done on that final sprint. Pretty much nothing between those front riders, though. Ross Hetherington, Derrick Mcintyre, Alan Hugel, Evan Flatter, all coming in pretty much in the same place. The big casualty, I think, is Martin van der Vis, who was one of our front runners. I'm going to have to jump in to see where he is. Yeah, so he's not at the finish yet. He's just coming over that hump to the back. So he was only about 28 seconds off of the front of the race. And I think that's going to put a bit of a dent into him, and that might take him down into 6th, 7th, maybe even 8th, 9th place in the individual GC. We'll have to see when the results come in.
All right, I'm heading over with the C race now. And I'm in with Patrick Harvey right now, who was Howell's pick for the win in the C race. Well, actually, his pick for the win in the B race, but he's racing in the C race right now. And we do see some riders off the front here, but I'm not sure that any of them are sign-ups, actually. I don't know if you're over in the C race yet, Chris?
Just trying to find the right Patrick Harvey on Zwift. There's a couple, so I'm just trying to find the right one, and then I'll jump in.
He's Patch Harvey. Patch Harvey, if that helps.
That does help, thanks.
But it looks like he just went through the banner, and I see, I don't recognize any of the names ahead of him from our signups list, but it's definitely a possibility. It looks like he's sitting in 10th place right now, so there could be one of those 9 riders. There we go. I see Basti Loken up there, and Basti is, I believe he's a sign up. I'll have to double check on that, but he's definitely registered on Zwift Power, so he's up here as well. He could have a shot in the long run as well.
I'm just trying to see as well. I think actually, so Jay Jones is, oh no, someone going the other way by the looks of things. We've got Lindholm, who looks like he's in first. Don't believe that is a sign up.
Yeah.
And then M. Garner, G. Parisi, L. Laborde, S. Smith, B. Loken, Cartio, KCITB. No, it looks like Patrick Harvey is leading the race in terms of the sign-up competition. And then the next is Jay Feltus, who we can see is about 38 seconds back from him. So he's going to put in another big time on Jason Feltus, unless Jason can push this back if he's riding with a group. But it does look like the C race has really broken up, and it's all lone riders or little pockets of riders in 2s and 3s.
Yep, I'm in with Patrick Harvey right now. And another rider I see farther down the leaderboard is Karen Loomis from Cryogen. I don't believe she's a sign-up, but one of our female riders out on course. So I like to keep an eye on her as well. And I do see Jay Feltis now, also 33 seconds back.
So interestingly, it looks like, because we saw that Evelyn Bunnick was actually dropped from the big group, she's made some really big gains on that group. She's now only 4 seconds off of Chalu, who's another vegan rider, and 4 seconds off Jason Feltus. So it looks like, although she's probably not going to make it back to Patrick Harvey, unless this little group can work together, it may be that we see Evelyn Bunnick come back on Jason Feltus and finish around the same time as him.
Yeah, I think it's likely because Feltus, he doesn't really have many people to ride with here, I don't think. I'll go back with Jason Feltus right now, actually, so we can get eyes on him real quick. Looks like Karen Loomis putting in a little sprint, 8 watts per kilograms. Maybe she's trying to catch back up with some of the riders ahead. But yep, I'm back with Jason Feltus right now, and it looks like he's still about 38 seconds off of Patrick Harvey. But as you said before, Evelyn Bunnick is the rider that we really need to be watching out for. The race between Bunnick and Feltus, because those are the two riders competing for I don't know, is it second place? They're definitely competing for a spot in the top 10 here.
Jason Feltus has got quite a time on Evelyn, but I was just noting that Evelyn had been dropped, but obviously done a massive amount of work on that second hill. She was obviously saving herself. And has brought back that gap to quite a lot. I think she was down about 30 seconds off. Now only down to 10 seconds to Feltus. That may be because the group was just blown apart on the second time through the hill.
Yup, and I'm just pulling up Ollie Fussell, one of our D riders there. We're not going into the D race quite yet, but just getting it ready because our D race will have to head back with them immediately after the finish to the C race, and it looks like Bunnick is still closing, 10 seconds now to Feltus, but I'm going to try and head back up a little farther, back with Patrick Harvey, because he's coming into the subway station. I guess you'd probably call it the tube station, Chris, but that means that the escalator is not too far away, and from there, it's only about 1 kilometer or so to the finish line. So I think Patrick Harvey's got this one locked up for our Veganuary winner on the day. I'm just going to check in with some of our Zwift Power live data to see where our D racers are out on course. Chris, any notes on the D race before, or on the C race before the finish? Excuse me. All right. Sure, if we... All right. Sorry about that. Looks like Chris will be back in a minute. Didn't see that message. But Patrick Harvey coming up out of the escalator right now. This is where the gradient kicks up to around 15%. And he's definitely got a nice gap to the second place Veganuary rider, who is Jason Feltus. Don't even see him on the leaderboard anymore, meaning that gap is outside of 30 seconds, I believe. Chris, you're back with us, I think?
Yeah, just got back. Patrick Harvey looks like he's definitely going to be taking the Veganuary win today. I can see that Feltus is about 27 seconds back. There is a little group there, and they're obviously just gone up the escalator. I can see Feltus just doing 7 watts a kilo, but it looks like he's being dropped by Chalu, who's one of our other vegan riders in this race. She's done incredibly well on this course, riding with W Honey. But I think that gap now to Patrick Harvey is just too big to bring back. They're all doing just under 3 watts a kilo. So I think that Patrick has got this in the bag, and it's going to be a real relief to him, I imagine, after those hills, that he doesn't have to go in for a sprint finish. He's done incredibly well here as Patrick Harvey. You can see from his avatar that he's got one of the buffer avatars. Certainly my one is about as skinny as you can possibly get, but he's looking quite muscular. So getting up those 2 hills and keeping that front position in first, a real effort there.
Yeah, I can. I'll just see if I can take a look at Patrick Harvey's Zwift Power profile real quick. If you want to walk us through the finish to this race, Chris. And
it's a bit of a prediction, the finish here, isn't it? Because Patrick Harvey doesn't look like he's going to be caught. So just riding in, not doing too much here, 3 watts a kilo, not really putting out massive numbers, just getting the job done. He's done all the work on the hill, and now he gets to come in for that finish. And of course, it's a first across the line for the finish here. So he'll be picking up the top points as well on the sprint competition, even though it's not a sprint. So a real big effort there from him, and well done for coming in first. He has got a few other riders who are around him who might give him a bit of a run for his money in terms of the Zwift Power final rankings. But in terms of our sign-up competition, it looks like no one's going to touch him today, and he is going to increase his lead. So I'm sure Hull will also be pleased that his teammates been able to do a big push there and increase his lead over Jason Feltus of race 3R.
Yep, two BRT riders doing really well today. And I looked at his Zwift Power profile here. Looks like he weighs around 96.2 kilograms. So a heavier rider, and definitely impressive that he was able to get away on the hills. But I'm back with our D race now, because they're on Box Hill currently, and it looks like Ollie Fussell has been dropped off the back of the leading group. Leo Hughes was able to stay up there towards the front, though. A Brutine, French rider C. Mateo. I'm not sure if these riders are sign-ups. Leo Hughes of the SDW Youth Squad is the first rider that I know for sure is a sign-up. And I can just try and confirm to see if some of those other riders are signed up as well. And also, I just want to mention, I just got confirmation from Nicolo, one of our C riders, that he will be available for a post-race interview today. So we'll be talking to him a little later on. He was 4 kilometers out from the finish about 2 minutes ago, so we can talk to him soon.
Yeah, that's really good. Well, I'm just trying to see now, because we've got, in fact, let's see if it shows us on the Zwift Power live setup. We've obviously got some SDW riders there. Ollie Fussell, as I say, I think it is Hughes of SDW Youth who is leading the Veganuary standings. And let's just have a look at where he currently stands in the ranking. So Leo Hughes, okay, so he's actually 23 seconds off the front, so I don't think he will be making much of a dent in Jimbo today, but I was just interested to see how things might change around. And I'm going to see if I can find Nathan Tully, because he's currently in second place in the Veganuary standings, but doesn't seem like he's managed to hang on to that front group. Henry Bottoms also is currently in 25th overall on the ride, but I think that puts him in something like 3rd or 4th for all the Veganuary standings. He is just 9 minutes off of Jimbo. So depending on how far back Jimbo is from this group, we could see a bit of a mix-up in the D race.
Well, actually, I have confirmation on that right now. Jimbo is 6 minutes and 13 seconds off of Leo here, so he's over 6 minutes off the lead. But then the gap from him to Nathan Tully, I'm just looking through here. The gap from him to Henry Bottoms is only about 1 minute, and then the gap from Jimbo to Nathan Tully is only about 1 to 2 minutes, so not enough for Nathan to take over the lead in the GC quite yet. But another rider I wanted to note was Ladine Unsers back here as well. Just lost her. Jimbo, the gap to Jimbo going back even farther. Now 7 minutes, 11 seconds from Leo Hughes to Jimbo Vin. So, and the gap is just going out farther and farther as Leo's descending now, whereas Jimbo's still climbing up Box Hill. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of gains Leo can make in these last few miles.
And I think that this second hill is really where the SDW boys can put on some real hurt on Jimbo, because he is a much heavier rider than them. They do have the advantage here in terms of their watts per kilo. And of course, the way that Zwift Power works it is that in order to be a C category rider, I think it's that you have to do more than 2.5 watts a kilo and more than 150 watts. So because they're so light, and because they can probably push 150 watts, and I don't know what that would be in watts a kilo for them, maybe over 3. So they've got a real advantage here. They can stay in that D category being so light for a lot longer. And this is where I think Jimbo is going to suffer, and they can really put out some big numbers and pull away and hopefully get back some of that big advantage that he got on the first 3 races.
Oh, yeah, and I just wanted to confirm from the chat, Nathan Tully had a dropout around 27 kilometers. So Nathan Tully, the dropout, kind of sealed his fate today, I think. And unfortunate because Ollie Fussell, another SDW rider, also had a dropout in, I believe it was race 2. So SDW is a strong team, but they seem to have some bad luck in this Veganuary series. But I think they might take home the win today with Leo Hughes. And they took home a win in Innsbruck last week with Ollie Fussell. So they may not be up there in the GC anymore, but they've definitely gotten some stage wins in, and I think next week's course will suit Jimbo more in terms of the time trial. Just harder to time trial as a lighter rider.
Yeah, well, it'd be interesting to see, won't it? But it looks like, I was just again checking those numbers, it looks like there's about 2 minutes up to Nathan Tully, and then another 2, and then it's 2 minutes 30 from Jimbo to Henry Bottom. So I think they had, so their gap is about 8-9 minutes. So it doesn't look like they're going to take that individual GC away from them. But when we look at the team GC, SDW Youth are absolutely storming it. And they have quite a gap, 2 minutes 54 to ART Fusion. I'm imagining that we're going to see that gap go up after the race today.
The other notable thing is Leo Hughes was 23 minutes 15 seconds off of our leader Jimbo in the D race, and he's got currently 10 minutes and 11 seconds on Jimbo, which means that his gap he'll have essentially cut it in half. And even more than in half, honestly, from 23 minutes. With this addition of those 10 minutes, he will be only 13 minutes off of our leader, Jimbo, as opposed to the 23 he's at now, which will be a big gain for him in the overall GC. And I think he's got a chance to jump up into somewhere around 5th or 6th today. Really great riding from Leo Hughes. He's currently sitting in 12th place, by the way.
Yeah, so Leo now out of all those hills, he's come through the final escalator and just pushing along, about to go over the bridge and then turn left towards the finish line. Only doing 1.4 watts a kilo, so he's maybe suffering after that, or he has jumped up a bit now. I was wondering whether maybe he was suffering after that last little push, but let's see if he can keep those watts up and push across the finish line. And get some ground back. I can see that Ollie Fussell is about 2 minutes back to him. So he's put in a huge effort there, even on his own teammates. And then from Ollie Fussell, back to... Can't even see Henry, but it looks like there's about a 2 minute gap again back from Ollie Fussell to Henry Bottoms. And then an even bigger gap then to Jimbo. So certainly we're going to see that table in the individual GC. I think we are going to see some changes there, but not at the very top.
Yep, and I'm just getting confirmation from Nicolo we're going to be doing a little live post-race interview with him. He just let me know that he is ready for that. So we'll have him on after the finish to our D race, and we can keep our eyes on Ollie Fussell as we talk to Nicolo too. So that'll be fun as well. We can get a couple minutes with Nicolo, see what he had to say about the C race, because I believe he was racing as a C today. But Leo Hughes coming down into the finish now. He's done 34.6 miles. I believe that translates to somewhere right around 50 kilometers. 1,565 feet of climbing. I think that's around 390 something meters. But it's just around an hour and a half of riding now for Leo Hughes. It's been a long race in our D category, but he's finally coming to the finish here, and he'll come through the finish as our Veganuary winner too.
Yeah, so Veganuary winner, and he'll be picking up the top sprint points there. I'm not entirely sure where Leo is in the sprint competition. I'm not sure whether he's actually posted any points. Oh no, in fact he has. He's got 10 points there. So Jimbo, way ahead in that, 72 points overall. But certainly Leo will be making a bit of a dent there. And let's hope he picked up some sprint points on the Mall as well. But a great ride from him. Can see he doesn't need to do much work here. He doesn't need to sprint. And in fact, Ollie Fussell is bringing that time back a bit. There's no way he's going to catch now. But certainly Leo, who was perhaps taking his foot off the gas, doing a little victory ride into the line. So congratulations, Leo. Absolutely fantastic riding. Really, really strong to break away by that much on those hills.
Yep, and it looks like I'm back in with Ollie Fussell now. I'll let Nicolo know that we're ready for him in a minute. But the one other thing that we'll need to watch for in the D race is whether or not Ollie Fussell will have been able to take that polka dot jersey away from Jimbo. And I have a feeling that the answer might be yes. They were only separated by 1 point coming into this race.
Definitely. I think Ollie Fussell's put in some huge times there. And in fact, Henry Bottoms, who's come, I believe, not sure where he is in relation. I think he's behind Ollie, but it all depends on how fast they went up that KOM. So maybe that Ollie maintains his position ahead of Henry, and I definitely think that he's going to jump ahead of Jimbo. But as to whether we then see an Ollie, Jimbo, Henry 1, 2, 3 in the KOM competition, we'll have to see.
Yep, and I just let Nicolo know that we are ready for him. And I think, Nicolo, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me, Cade?
Yes, I can hear you. All right. That is great. You want to introduce yourself real quick?
Yeah, rider for Team Italy, C category, heavyweight rider. I'm a sprinter, and this race was really a quick stage. That was hard.
Yeah. Do you know about how you did? Yeah.
Around 63rd, something like that.
All right, that's good. And as we talked to Nicolo, Ollie Fussell's just coming into the finish here for those of you watching. But so what was your strategy going into today as a sprinter? I know you said you're a heavier rider targeting the sprints. Did you try and survive to that reverse mall sprint to take some points there?
No, I didn't try to get points. Just tried to stay in the draft with the bigger group and just trying to survive today.
Yep. I think lots of riders were out there just trying to survive today. The C race was really tight. I think Patrick Harvey took the win there, but
yeah.
it was a tough race. So what did you feel was the toughest part of this course? I know as a sprinter, it was probably one of the climbs, but which one did you find tougher?
Yeah, Fox Hill, definitely. Like having a 11 great climb at the start, it's really tough for me. Like I was pushing 3.0, 3.1 watt per kilo and see all the other guys going away. That was the hardest part.
Yeah, and Chris, do you have any questions for Nicolo?
Yeah, ciao, Nicolo. Great ride. I mean, it's a tough stage, and you say, as a heavier rider, it was going to be difficult for you. I think next week we've got the ITT around Casapats. How are you feeling about that one? Is that more to your liking?
Yeah, that's definitely something I like more. It's not the best type of race for me, as I'm really good at drafting on the flat parts and then having big sprint. But the ITT is also good for me.
Good. Okay. So hopefully we'll see a big effort from you there, and we'll have to obviously watch you on the coverage. And then quickly, as I asked Hole Davies as well, do you have a favorite vegan meal? Obviously, coming from, Mediterranean background, I suppose there's a lot of meat in that diet, but do you have any vegan favorites?
Yeah, like, I don't know how to say it in English, like hummus. Is it correct, right?
Hummus. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's something I really like to eat every day at every time.
Oh, excellent. Okay. Well, there we go. If you want to ride like the Team Italy, you need to be riding with a pot of hummus.
Yeah, definitely.
Yep.
Thanks, Nick.
Yeah, thank you for all the effort you are doing, and it's great the coverage you are making, and also it's a really great event.
Thanks, Nicolai. Thanks for taking part.
Yeah. Goodbye. Have a great day. Ciao, everyone.
You too.
Ciao.
All right, that was Nicolo Martinoli, everybody. And just quickly before we hop off, I think this about concludes the stream. But Chris, I promised earlier that you and I would share our favorite vegan dishes. So you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. We have a couple. I make a courgette ragu, which is like a little bit spicy. I put some chili in there, like caramelize the courgettes first, and then some tomato in there. Makes a really nice sauce for pasta. And then also today, actually, usually over the weekend, we make a really big meal that will last us a few times through the week. So I've made a what we call our everything curry, which is just where we basically get everything that we've got in the fridge left over. So today it was aubergines, and then we had some swede, and we just chucked it all in a pot and have made a huge curry. So yeah, lots of spices in there, and that's going to be really nice tonight. How about yourself, Cade? Any favorites?
Well, I actually just had this a few days ago, but I like butternut squash soup. I think would be my favorite. Can put a lot of good spices in there. And fall is definitely my favorite season, and I think it's definitely a fall dish. So I think I'd have to go with some butternut squash soup. Would be my favorite.
Yeah, definitely a nice hearty dish for those months when it's getting a bit colder.
All right, everybody, that concludes our stream of Veganuary. Stage number 4. This was the Queen stage on the London Pretzel. If you enjoyed the video, please remember to like the video down below and subscribe to the Zwift Race Place for more live race coverage, Zwift tips, and coaching tips as well. Chris has actually done a coaching tips video with us. You should check that out. All right, so that concludes the stream. Thanks to everybody for watching, and we'll see you next week.
See you next week. Right on.